maybe there's things in this child's past that I can't understand. I need to be curious about it. I need to keep digging and I need to keep showing up.
You're listening to the Connected Parenting Minute with Will and CarrieAnn Standfest. This podcast is a conversation about parenting using connection first, trauma-informed principles. Because when you lead with connection, everyone feels seen, which is the foundation to a more peaceful home. This podcast reminds you that you don't have to be a perfect parent, but we can all get a little better, one connected parenting minute at a time.
Hello, and welcome back to the Connected Parenting Minute. My name is Will Standfest, and I'm so glad you've joined us tonight. With me, as always, is the lovely CarrieAnn Standfest.
I am also so glad that everyone is here, and it's exciting to be recording a new season.
We are launching season 4 of the podcast. That is so incredible. It is so exciting for us and such a blessing that we can keep doing this.
That is very true. And we plan to do a life update episode coming up in a couple of weeks.
Couple weeks,
but we wanted to dive back into content, but then we can probably share a little bit about our life and what it's looked like and all those things.
There's been a lot going on in the Standfest house this summer.
Yes, there has.
Believe you me.
As a result of all those things, we decided we would kick off the season with an episode on attachment.
Attachment.
It's that ominous word that gets thrown around a lot. And especially if you're in the foster adoptive circles, like you have to do like training upon trainings on it. And then normally gets overwhelming. And you like, what the heck is this?
It's a concept that is really important, but it's a concept that sometimes feels nebulous and hard to describe. Even after we've read a lot of books on attachment, listened to podcasts and been at conferences and all these other things. It's still like you hear somebody else explain it and you're like, oh, that makes sense now. And it's just something that I think it's important to have a high level grasp of it, whether you're an adoptive parent or just a biological parent.
That's true. And I would have to say too, it is ominous because unless if you're actively trying to figure it out, and I mean, like everybody's brain works differently, right? But for me personally, I have to want to know the information in order for it to stick. Yeah. And a lot of times I have to hear it a bunch of different ways.
Yeah. Well, that's how we all are, right?
I guess. I tell myself the story that it's just me.
Of course.
But that's been part of the fun of doing this podcast is because we get to share some stuff that we've learned and maybe twist it a little bit in the way that our brains understand it. And then maybe somebody else will get a little something out of it.
Well, that's how we've learned things ourselves, is somebody else has taken the time to explain something that they learned and give their own spin or twist or interpretation on it. And sometimes all it takes is that one more explanation where all of a sudden it just clicks and all of a sudden it makes sense to you. So that's a big part of why we're here. Exactly.
So when we're talking about attachment, our first point of this evening is attachment matters.
Attachment matters.
It does. Attachment matters because it really helps us frame things in the world.
Absolutely. It's a lens that we look at the world through, our attachment style.
Mm-hmm. And, like we said, if you've been in part of the foster adoption world, you've probably taken trainings or read books on it. And there's a lot of studies that have been done on it. And I think that's a very good thing because we want to be able to understand the human behavior. There's a couple particular really dated when we watched them trainings, but I think they stuck out to me because they were done with babies.
Oh, yeah.
And like there's one particular...
They're not dated as in the sense of like not relevant anymore. They're just, and it was an older study, the still face baby experiments.
Right. But I mean, like, the high chairs were like the 70s or something. I don't remember when it was, but it seemed.
Sure. It was several years ago.
It's still relevant data.
It was probably like 20 years ago. It was the 80s, right?
My gosh. Okay. We digress. Anyway, but like there's the still face baby where, yes. Parent, caregiver is interacting with baby, having fun, and all of a sudden, parent just has a still face. And it's interesting to watch and see over time how the baby would get more and more agitated when the caregiver did not respond to the child.
Because in a healthy parent-child relationship, there's that like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not send and receive, but
neurons. Wow.
The mirror neurons inside of our minds. When a baby coos and smiles at you, like it's hard not to just smile back at the baby. And that's how the baby learns how to smile, is they see you delight and find joy in them and smile, and they kind of react. And then it's that give and take, that send and receive, that back and forth of the baby. And so when in these experiments, the researchers would have the mother interact and play and kind of engage with the baby, and then turn their face away and turn back to face the baby, and then just not react to anything the baby would do. See how the baby would respond to that situation, because that's a distressing situation to a baby.
Yeah, over time. And, I'd watch those and it'd be mildly uncomfortable, because after a while, you're like, oh my gosh, interact with the baby. The research, you go over and over, it shows stuff about human behavior.
Because different babies would react in different ways.
That's true.
Which kind of led to the finding in the research that this attachment style, like your attachment style, is formed when you're a small child. When you're a baby, you kind of form these fundamental beliefs about how the world acts and how people are going to react.
Right.
That's that lens of that attachment style.
Right. Back to our point of attachment matters. It affects so much of what we do our entire lives.
Yeah.
I mean, you had a great story about skiing.
Oh, yeah. When we were talking about this episode earlier, I talked about the idea that if you're a snow skier, because we have people that don't live where there's snow, which is crazy, but
it's true. I mean, or snowboarder.
Yeah.
I mean,
either way, when you go skiing, snow is very white and reflective. And so for all us Midwesterners, we know that if you go skiing, you need ski goggles, which are basically just really big, fancy sunglasses that attach to your face, which lets you go down the hill and not like feel wind chill of negative 50 or 80 or 100 because you're going so fast.
We're
and it also helps you see.
Now.
It also helps you see because everything's so bright and reflective and white and all that stuff. I mean, just picture a big pair of sunglasses attached to your face. And most of these goggles are tinted.
Mm-hmm.
I remember specifically when I was in high school and I loved going skiing, I had a set of orange ski goggles just because that was what I could afford as a broke high school student to go skiing with. And they were great. They worked really well. They kept I could see, I wasn't blinded and whatever, but I specifically remembered you'd sit down either for a lunch break or maybe you're just taking a break at the top of the hill for a few minutes and you take your goggles off because sometimes they can get a little sweaty or a little warm and whatever. And you're just a little worn out and you take them off and like the whole world shifts blue for a few moments.
Mm.
And then your eyes have to like readjust and then you feel like you see normally again. And you're like, it's a very disorienting experience for that moment because your eyes are so used to looking through orange. Your eyes literally would adjust to try to normalize the color interpretations inside of your brain. So what it saw what it thought was normal.
Right.
And then as soon as that lens is removed, all of a sudden everything shifts blue. And then your brain's like, whoa, that's not what things are supposed to look like, and readjusts everything again.
Right.
Which is a little crazy if you think about that for a second. I
know. As you're telling this story, I'm sitting here going, my goodness, the brain is amazing.
Yeah. It's literally normalizing the images you're seeing and adjusting the colors it's interpreting because it knows what it wants to see.
Right. So, I mean, that comes down to the fact that our attachment is that lens. Now, it's not to say that, the orange attachment lens is bad. It just means that how we see the world is filtered through our attachment.
We are on the road again. We're teaching at 2 conferences this fall, CAFO 2025 and the Replanted Conference. If you live in the Houston area, check us out at CAFO Summit, October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Go to cafo2025.org for more details. That's CAFO2025.org. Or if you live in the Chicago area, come see us at the Replanted Conference, October 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Go to replantedconference.org for more details. That's replantedconference.org. And if you want us to speak at your next event, reach out to us. Use info@connectedparentingminute.com and we would love to work with you. And now back to the show.
Our first point is attachment matters because it really does affect how you see the world. Our second point is that attachment is a core part of who we are.
Okay. Attachment is a core part of who we are.
Right. First off, it affects how we see the world.
Yes.
Right. And it affects how we engage with different people and engage with the world at large.
Okay. Yeah.
Really. And there's a lot. And when I say it was confusing, I'm still having a hard time remembering. I think there's like 4 main attachment styles.
There's 4 attachment styles.
There's 4 main attachment styles. And we'll just make the caveat, because we were talking about this earlier too, is that you're not just one attachment style.
Yes.
Like, that's a really important thing I want to make sure that people know, because you can have a majority of an attachment style, but still have other ones thrown in there.
You'll have one primary attachment style, and then based on circumstances in life and different things going on, your kind of secondary and tertiary attachment styles will kind of change kind of their ratios. Right. For example, I took an attachment style quiz as a part of a leadership course that I was taking a few months ago. And I had sent the results to the same person that I had taken the same quiz with like a year before for a different class I was taking. And he reached out to me and he's like, Will, your avoidant attachment style like went way up. Like, what's going on? He's like, are you being really dismissive of people? Like, and I explained I had a situation going on at work where I was extremely frustrated with somebody, and this person had been creating a lot of problems for me at work and had really complicated a lot of things and done it in such a way that I really doubted his authority on the decisions he was making. And I'm like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And he's really goofing things up. And I was very dismissive of this guy. He's like, well, that explains it. He's like, you're in a situation right now where you're reacting in a very dismissive and avoidant way.
Wow.
Which was fascinating to me.
It is fascinating because, again, with the brain, we adapt, we change. It is truly amazing.
So the 4 attachment styles.
4 attachment styles. I know secure.
There is secure attachment.
There's secure. And then the other 3 attachment styles are, I can't think of the word right now.
Insecure.
There we go.
No.
Wow, I feel really dumb.
It's all good. The 4 attachment styles are secure attachment, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized.
All right. So I was really close with a lot of those, actually, which is good. And the thing that falls under secure is also insecure.
Yeah, that's a good point to say, is a lot of people who grew up in a difficult, traumatic, neglectful environment will end up with an insecure attachment style. And that doesn't mean that there's no hope, that nothing can ever happen, that they're always going to be assumed that the world is against them. There is such a thing called an earned secure attachment style, which is kind of the gold standard as a adoptive or foster parent that you're trying to get to. Is you're trying to get to the point where you've proven yourself trustworthy in ways that the child understands and really connects with often enough and over a long enough period of time that despite having an insecure attachment style growing up, they are now securely attached to you.
Right. Boy, we're having way more things to talk about in this episode than I thought we were going to. Actually, I knew we would, but I just didn't know how deep it would go. All right. So we talked that attachment is a core part of who we are. And the one thing I do want to talk about is, how do we gain our attachment style? How does that happen?
It happens when we're babies, right? Because we're talking about the still-faced baby experiment earlier, that these kiddos that were just a couple of months old already had different reactions to the same situation because their lens on the world was different. And so what happens this happens throughout our lives, but the easiest time to understand it is when you're an infant. And I think we've explained this a few times in the podcast, but it's always good to go back to it, is our attachment style is formed as an infant. When the infant has a need, when they're hungry, cold, lonely, scared, wet, what do?
They cry.
They cry, and that baby cries, and the caregiver is like, oh, my baby is crying. And like you, as a consistent caregiver, you go and pick up the baby and you figure out what the baby's need is, right? And then you take care of that baby's need and you comfort the baby, and then they feel like their need has been met. So the baby has a need, the baby expresses the need through crying, the caregiver meets the need, and then the baby is comforted.
Right.
And that those 4 steps happen over and over and over. Everybody who's had a baby knows this.
So many times.
Literally, it'll happen over 100,000 times in the first year. And and if you think about this from a brain perspective, from a higher level, yes, the baby had a wet diaper and I changed it. Big deal. No, The baby used their voice to express their needs.
Mm-hmm.
They said, help.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody came and met their need, which tells them their voice matters,
Mm-hmm.
which tells them that when something they don't like is happening, that it will be made right.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they were hungry, well, somebody came and fed me.
Right.
So I can trust that you do that 100,000 times, you cry out for food and somebody gives you food, you start believing that somebody's going to feed you.
Right.
Right. And so that's how secure attachment is formed.
Mm-hmm.
And insecure attachment is the breakdown with the caregiver. Right? If for whatever reason a caregiver is unable to meet the need of the child, then that's where that attachment cycle breaks down. Because now a child has cried out with a need and nobody met the need, or somebody met the need inconsistently, or whatever the situation is. You start believing that maybe my voice doesn't matter. Maybe people out there don't really care about me. Maybe there's not, like, I have a need that needs to be met and I need to take care of it myself. Now, obviously a baby's not actively thinking these things.
Right.
But these are the truths that are kind of being built into them based on the experiences they've had in their life.
Right. And that's also to encourage people, because I think when I started really learning about this, I started going, oh my gosh, how many times did I not come and meet the need right away? You know, there is that level that, you know, we're working towards consistency over time. It's not going to be perfection every time.
No parent is perfect. Every parent has those.
Every parent has their stuff. And sometimes you're just like, you know what? I need to set this baby down and chill out myself, and I will come back.
And that's important.
Right.
Because, and there's research too. We've talked about this, that 30% is a passing grade for secure attachment. You know, responding consistently 30% of the time is enough to build secure attachment with our children. And most of us are better than 30%.
Right. And so that's just my encouragement, because I always think about that. Even now when I learn more about that, I'm just like, oh, but you know what? We're doing the best we can with what we have, and we continue to do better as we know better.
Absolutely. Amen.
And so one other thing I wanted to point out too, as you were talking, and we're talking about those needs of kids being met and stuff, a lot of times, and this dives into children who weren't born from us, children who have experienced a lot of trauma. I'm thinking specifically like of in orphanages. Sometimes when people adopt out of an orphanage, they'll be like, oh, this kid is so great. They never cry. But when you understand this concept, and I'm literally getting goosebumps right now because it just is so impactful. When you understand that they learned that their voice doesn't matter, they no longer use it. And so it's just a reminder that when we are parenting children that have experienced things that we don't understand, we have to take a step back and look and say, maybe there's things in this child's past that I can't understand. I need to be curious about it. I need to keep digging, and I need to keep showing up.
Amen. Like, can we just drop the mic and end the podcast right there? Woo.
I mean, it just really sits in with me, because so many times we're trying to deal with kids' behaviors and how can we fix it? How can we make them do better?
How do we make the behavior stop?
How do we make them do what we want them to do rather than, you know, X, Y, and Z that's driving me up the wall? But really, when we can't understand and realize what our children have experienced, when we don't take the time to think about it and to be curious, we might be missing the opportunity to speak truth and grace into their life.
Yeah.
And I'm like saying this right now, and I'm going, oh man, I need to work on that with our kids, because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about them when we're talking about this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is very convicting even for me.
Right. And that's why we do this podcast.
And one last little point for our biological only parents out there is our kids have experiences outside of our home.
Mm-hmm.
And those experiences can be very impactful. Yeah. I think any of us as a parents can think back to when we were in elementary school and that one super embarrassing moment where we just felt mortified, and you know, whatever happened, it was in gym class or on the playground or with our friends and we got teased or we did something in front of the class. We've all had those moments in our lives that have really rocked us. And it may not permanently change your attachment style, but it affects how we interpret the world. Mm-hmm. And as parents, we need to remember that.
Right. And one other piece, we had 3 points to this podcast, but I think we're just going to end it at 2, because I knew we were going to do a second part to this, but at this point, I think we are going to just hold off on our 3rd point and rope it into our next episode. But I also wanted to share, like, for us that maybe we are pretty neurotypical, maybe we are really securely attached adults or mostly secure attached adults. And we deal with and interact with people because we always interact with other people, right?
Yeah.
Is that we may often forget or not even think about the fact that other people don't feel the same as us.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Our 2 points from our 3-point podcast are, first point is that attachment matters. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, because attachment is the lens through which we see the world.
Ooh, I like it. And then attachment is a core part of who we are.
Because attachment was formed in our earliest years when we're little infants. And it really tells us what our opinion is of what's going to happen in the world. Because our brains are prediction engines and they're always interpreting and predicting what's going to happen. And that's all formed as a little bitty baby.
I'm also thinking about future episodes that we're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I've been reading a lot of books lately, so I've got lots of things to say.
We're not going to do a book report podcast.
No.
But she might just teach us a few things. So
yeah, something like that.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on the episode. Make sure that you take a moment and like, subscribe, leave a comment on YouTube. We appreciate any feedback or thoughts you have on attachment styles. We'd love to incorporate your thoughts or questions into a future episode. And before we go, we always want to remind you,
you don't have to be a perfect parent,
but we can all get a little bit better, one connected parenting minute at a time.
Thank you so much for listening to my mom and dad's podcast. Be sure to share it with friends and subscribe. See you next time.
For more parenting tips or to connect with us, check out the Connected Parenting Minute on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Or you can send us an email using connectedparentingminute@gmail.com.